Hi, welcome to CFS Fibreglass. I'm Paul Bratell. So today we've got this plug or pattern of a boat. As you can see, it's very nicely crafted using multiple frames to create the whole profile shape. I'll just move it around so that you get an angle on that. And also it has an excellent surface finish which is ideal for moulding off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to wax and polish this using multiple coats of mirror glaze in order to get a good build-up of wax so that we don't have any release problems when we build the mould and release the mould from the plug or pattern as we call it. Now I've already pre-waxed this several times. You need to sort of give at least 3 waxes on this type of surface, but it is a beautiful, you can see here, it is a beautiful sheen on there, which obviously helps out. So I'm now going to wax this one more time before we go to gel coat. Right, plenty of wax on the rag, and we go in a circular motion to make sure we cover every area, every bit of the area on this pattern, because you don't want to miss anywhere, which is another reason why we give it several waxes. So a nice good even thick coat. A bit more down here. Getting right into the corners, all the vulnerable areas. Right, now you can leave that to dry quite a bit, or you can rub it off straight away. As I've already given this lots of waxes, I think I can rub this off and get another shine to it. So we've now waxed the pattern. We're going to put a grey gel coat on, grey because it's a nice neutral colour. We're going to put 2 gel coats on, obviously one will go on and then go off, and then we'll put the second coat on. So this is the mixed gel. Right, so I'm going to layer it out quite quickly and quite evenly to start with. The important thing is to get a nice even coverage. So if we go one way and then go the other and finish off little bits afterwards, we don't want any runs and we don't want any pooling. Nice spread around the base. As we go along, before I finish, I'll just check and touch up any areas. Last bit at the end here. Any excess you can take off with the brush. Right, now let's just go around that and see that we've got a nice coverage. A little bit missed there. That looks okay. So we've put 2 gel coats onto the plug or pattern. We're now ready to lay the tissue, which is a very, very lightweight material, but it goes around all the corners and is a good base layer before the fiberglass laminates. Right, I've mixed my resin, I've catalysed it. I'm going to wet out. It doesn't take much resin at all, but you've got to make sure that it is properly wet out. You can see there it goes, it sits and forms beautifully around all these tight corners and edges. Now that's soaked out. I'll come back to that in a moment and just sort of finish off. It takes very little resin. What I'll do is I'll put a piece on there now just to show how it sits around that tight section there. I've pre-ripped it slightly so that it sits in nicely, like so. And again, I'll come back to that in a minute when it's sort of soaked out a little bit, and just make sure it's free from air and nicely flattened. Right, let's have this section here. We'll just run a piece across the middle here, take it down to there, sit it down nicely. So slightly torn again just to make it easier to wet out. And for an area like this you can perhaps wet out a bit more quickly. Do this side. And just wet that into there, push that air out, slide that over. We don't use a roll or anything like that on here. It's literally just a brush, because it does say it sits down so easily. So we've put the tissue onto the gel coat. We're going to do a little bit of rubbing down here with some very fine wet and dry, just to take off any little spines or hairy bits. Don't rub it too hard because you don't want to go through, but it's just to give a nice finish to that. Okay. Right, now we're going to put the second layer on with a 300 gram chop strand mat. Obviously in resin, we're going to catalyse the resin, and we'll do one layer of that and get it laminated down. Right. Just need to mix my catalyst. The resin's catalysed. What we'll do firstly is put a nice resin coat onto the tissue, just to give us a nice base for the chop strand to go to. Don't put too much on, just enough to, as I say, to give it a nice base to work from. Right, now I've pre-ripped some of this mat here, as you can see. There's no problem with ripping it, because you a nice edge to work from, and you can just build up accordingly. So that's the end piece there. Right, now we just take this piece here, go right to the edge where we're going to take our line for the mould. Just give the resin time to wet out, so that'll be wetting out while I do this side. Same here. Right, while that wets out, we'll do the front section. Again, right to the edge, nicely wet out, and just take that bit of mat around the corner there. that gives us a good joint for this piece here, which will go that way. Again, curling round. All nicely wet out, no dry patches. Okay, right now we'll start with a section here. We'll go that way. I've already pre-ripped some little pieces there to help it fold round, so that should sit nicely onto there, like so. Any little bits here I shall just overlap because I've gone down so far, but I shall just check afterwards to make sure that I've got full coverage. Slight patch there that will need a bit of extra mat. Now this is the first layer of chop strand, and there'll be a few more layers to come as we build up. Obviously the mould's got to be pretty strong. Okay. I'm going to put a piece on the back there. Right, start rolling this. You can see the resin pushing through the mat. Consolidating, getting rid of all the air. I shall finish off with a brush. There's a sharp point here, so we've got to be careful not to push the mat away from here. So we're back. Now we're going to put 2 layers of 450 next. This is the 450 mat. I've already ripped it up and prepared it. Now, an important thing, a little bit of wet and dry paper. You've got to take off all the little glass spines from the previous laminate, because any spine sticking up will stop this mat from sitting down, so it's very important. So a good but proper wipe off of any, particularly the corners here, that's where the spikes are. Right, okay, so resin's mixed. We're going to put some resin onto the surface to help the mat go down. We decided to put 2 450 layers on because of the shape of the actual mould. So that's sufficient to give us the strength. We're also going to put an extra layer around the flange here to just give that a bit more. Right, start at the back. Leave that to wet out and take its shapes. Another piece at the front. I'll just tear that there. And then we'll start with the layers across each one, wetting out each one as we go along. Nicely wet out again, no dry patches. Next piece, slight overlap to the previous one, so we've got the joint there, we're just going slightly over. We'll do it that way, make it nice and clean. Now these two layers will be done at the same time, so once I've done one layer, I shall go back and put the next layer on and then consolidate both together, and then that'll be it. So we've left this for over the weekend to get a good solid cure. Now we've got to release it from the pattern. So it's a case of releasing all around the edge of the flange here very gently. We've got to do this gently because we don't want to crack the gel coat or anything like that. So plastic wedges, if I use a scraper just to lift slightly under here to start with, and then bring the wedge underneath, you can see there it's beginning to get a little bit of movement there. It's coming away actually. So we're going all the way around the edge here. As I say, it's well cured now, but you've got to be a little bit careful to just make sure that we don't. Right, so let's go for it. Let's use the smaller wedges. See, there we go. It's on its way. One mould. And one pattern in perfect condition.